All right, let's get right into it. I want you to picture something. It's October 30th, 1984. You're standing just outside Detroit, looking toward the city skyline, and you see this strange orange glow against the clouds. That's not a sunset. That's the sound of a city screaming. You see, in most of America, this was just mischief night, the night before Halloween. But in Detroit, this was Devil's Night, a night of fire.
And the scale of it, it's just staggering. We are talking about 810 fires over a period of just 3 days. But here's the thing that's truly shocking. This wasn't an attack. This wasn't some foreign enemy. This was a city setting itself on fire. The call was, quite literally, coming from inside the house.
And that brings us to the central mystery of this whole thing. It's the question we're going to try and answer together here. Why? Why on earth would a city do this to itself?
To even begin to understand this, we've got to be on the ground, right? So let's see this night through the eyes of two people who were right in the middle of it all. Frank, a veteran firefighter, and Eleanor, a resident who's been there for decades, just trying to save her home.
So let's start with Frank. For him and his crew, October 30th was a day you just dreaded. This quote, man, it really says it all. It wasn't just about the sheer number of fires they knew they were going to face. The truly chilling part, they knew they might be attacked, just for doing their jobs. Driving into a neighborhood to save it could mean having bricks and rocks thrown at your truck.
And then you have Eleanor. Just picture this image for a second. A woman who's lived in her home for 40 years, standing on her lawn with a garden hose, soaking her own roof. She's not waiting for help. She's trying to protect herself from the abandoned, decaying house right next door. Her desperation, it just perfectly captures the terror and the frustration of living in a city dotted with thousands of these empty tinderboxes.
So how did things get this bad? It's really important to understand that the fires of 1984, they didn't just happen out of nowhere. No, they were a symptom of much older, much deeper wounds. Let's take a look at the kindling that was piled up for decades before anyone ever lit a match.
This timeline is absolutely key to understanding the whole story. It starts way before the 80s. See that date, 1950? That's the peak. That's as good as it got for the auto industry. Then bam, 1967. The rebellion leaves these deep, deep scars and it triggers what's known as white flight, a mass exodus to the suburbs that just completely gutted the city's tax base. The oil crises in the 70s, that was just another brutal blow. So by the time we get to 1984, Detroit has been bleeding jobs, people, and hope for more than 30 years.
And this is what that decline looks like on the ground. This is the physical result of all those years of decay. Tens of thousands of abandoned buildings, just entire neighborhoods hollowed out, left to rot. Every empty house was like a monument to neglect. And, as we're about to see, it was the perfect fuel for a city-wide inferno.
Okay, so you've got the fuel, piles and piles of it. But who was actually lighting the matches? Well, what's so fascinating here is that it wasn't just one group of people. The answer is what's been called a toxic motive cocktail. It's this bizarre mix of different people with very different reasons for starting fires, all doing it under the cover of this one singular chaotic night.
So let's break down this cocktail. Ingredient number 1, profit. These were property owners, landlords who saw Devil's Night as the perfect opportunity to torch their failing buildings and cash in on the insurance money. Ingredient 2, justice, or vigilante justice anyway. These were fed-up residents who were burning down known crack houses that they felt the police were either unable or just unwilling to deal with. And then ingredient 3, and maybe the most crucial one, the scream. This was a whole generation of young people, totally hopeless, feeling completely invisible, who used fire as a way to finally make the world pay attention.
Yeah, a screen made of fire. That just hits you, doesn't it? For thousands of kids growing up surrounded by all this decay, with no jobs and no real future, setting a fire was the only way they felt they could be seen or heard. It was destructive, for sure, but it was their scream.
So let's go back to that night. Let's go back to 1984, the horrifying peak of it all. The night the city truly burned.
Now, just look at these numbers for a second. This is where you really see the shift. The number of arson fires in actual buildings, it almost quadrupled in 1 year. This tells you it wasn't just kids burning trash in an empty lot anymore. No, this was a deliberate escalation. This was about burning the city itself.
And here is maybe the most surreal, most chilling detail of all. The atmosphere on the streets, it wasn't really terror. In a lot of places, it was a party. People called it a carnival of destruction. You had crowds gathering on street corners to watch and actually cheer,
Kids were on rooftops with binoculars, spotting the next blaze. People were even driving in from other states, like fire-chasing tourists, just to watch the spectacle.
And this brings us right back to Frank, the firefighter. In this completely upside-down world, he wasn't a hero coming to the rescue. He and his crew were seen as part of the same system that had let these neighborhoods fall apart. They were the guys trying to put out the fun. That moment, when a community starts attacking its own rescuers, that shows you just how deep the civic wounds really were.
But that's not where this story ends. Not even close. Because out of all that fire and all that ash, something pretty incredible started to happen. The city began to save itself.
They called it Angels' Night, and it was this massive, grassroots, citizen-led movement. We're talking thousands of volunteers, people just like Eleanor, patrolling their own streets. They'd put orange ribbons on their cars, they'd turn on all their porch lights. They would literally adopt the abandoned houses on their block to guard them from arsonists.
And you want to know the crazy part? It worked. I mean, look at this chart. The numbers don't lie. Look at that drop. In just 1 year, the number of fires was cut almost in half. The community was physically taking back control of their own streets.
This quote, this just says it all, doesn't it? It was a powerful act of defiance. It was thousands of regular people standing up together, drawing a line in the sand, and basically telling the arsonists, and maybe the whole world, this is still our home, and you can't have it.
So when you look back at Devil's Night, it's pretty clear this was never about simple mischief. The fires, they were a symptom. They were the physical manifestation of decades of systemic abandonment and the profound, crushing hopelessness that came with it.
And that kind of leaves us with one final, pretty uncomfortable question. It's easy to look back at 1984 Detroit and just write it off as madness. But when a community feels completely abandoned, totally invisible and unheard, what does that scream for help sound like? The real question is, are we listening closely enough to recognize it in our own time?
And so, another chapter closes. For more journeys into history's forgotten files, please like and subscribe. Your next story awaits.